Let's rewind like a VHS. Turn back the time, feel the beat in our chest. Make sure that we never forget. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. Let's concede that we wanna believe that the past was only a dream, just a place that we never could leave. Follow us on the way to retrieve. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. Like a VHS, turn back the time, feel the beat in our chest. Make sure that we never forget. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS, VHS. Let's rewind like a VHS. VHS.
Let me have the racket, Kathleen. Come on, Kathleen, honey, let me have the racket. Let me have the racket, Kathleen. Look what she's got. Come on, let me have it. Honey, let me have it, honey. Boy. That's a
girl. All right, DJ Anubis here with you on the Cinematic Synergy with my co-host and good friend Kevin Lambert from the Entertainment Headquarters. Thank you, sir, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And we are going to review, if you saw a little clip there from a TV movie back in 1977 called Tarantulas, A Deadly Cargo. And coincidentally enough, today I had not really planned on doing much of anything. I was just kind of thinking of what I was going to do this week. And then Kevin hit me up, says, hey, did you get a pick for the next cinematic? I'm like, you know what? I just came across something. I think we're going to do this.
I'm bored. Can we just do it today? Because I need something to do. My life is boring as fuck. Not really.
Well, we're in good spirits, though. We saw GXK, so we're going to be talking about that down the road on your big live event, which people would need to tune into because we're going to have a lot to say on that.
Absolutely.
Did you see this movie prior to me bringing it up to you?
Never heard of it. Never ever heard of this movie. When you sent us the link, I literally thought, oh, tarantula, like the big kaiju type black and white tarantula. Then it said at the end, cargo, and I think, I've never heard of this one before. And like I say, I've literally just before starting the stream, literally just watched the last couple of minutes of it. So it has been a bit of a pleasant surprise on this nice Tuesday afternoon for me personally.
The Moody Blues. So it's directed by Stuart Hagman. Cast has actually a lot of big names. We have Claude Atkins, who, for people that are old like me, BJ and the Bear, Tentacles, Gunsmoke, Pat Hingle, The Quick and the Dead, Hang 'em High, Batman movies of the 80s and 90s.
Pat Hingle, when I seen that name in this, I thought, oh yeah, if he's in this, I'm watching.
Then you got a couple of guys who's not really in it for very long, but Howard Hessman of My Show for This Is Spinal Tap, Tom Atkins, of course, all the big horror films of the 80s. The plot is an airplane carrying coffee beans from South America has unpleasant stowaways, a horde of tarantulas, which overcome the pilots as the airplane is flying over an orange producing town in California. The airplane crashes, and the unlucky inhabitants of the town are released to poisonous spiders into the mist. Once the town's officials discovered that the tarantulas are responsible for several deaths, the tarantulas have already descended upon the town's only orange processing factory. Yeah, so the funny thing about the 70s is, as with a lot of things, you had Jaws, Tentacles, Orca, Day of the Animals. You had a lot of these films and TV movies that were centered around not really monsters, but just animals being like the villains. And there's a lot of spider movies, Tarantula, Kingdom of the Spiders. You also had Attack of the Giant Spider or something like that. It was an alien type movie. But this was one that I remember catching back in the day, and I'm like, I was probably about 7 years old when I saw this, so I was like, very creepy in a lot of ways because obviously they're using real spiders here. Now, your first impressions of what you saw in the film?
When the initial start of it is at the airfield, and when they're getting the coffee beans, and you see the spiders, and then you hear the theme music. I thought, is this gonna be like a serious movie, or is it gonna be more of like a dark comedy kind of movie? But then as it progressed, after a few minutes, and you see them in the cargo bay of the plane, and then obviously you see them in the thunderstorm, and you see the initial terror on the face, and one gets bitten by the spider. Then I suddenly realise this is trying to be a serious, academic, I guess, film. Because with the arachnids, and that's what it would have been. It would have been an academic / pandemic if the spiders left beyond the orange grove in the film, because obviously they're a deadly species. So right. I soon realised it wasn't what I initially thought it could have been. It had more of a serious tone to it. So I was pleasantly surprised.
Good. Yeah, it was funny. I was telling you while I was watching it myself, now because I have a hobby of being a tarantula keeper, when I rewatch this, I actually go into it trying to identify the species that they're using in the film, because they're using real spiders here.
Yeah.
And
that was actually going to be one of my questions. I was going to say, did you recognize any of the species of the spiders?
I did actually. Now I can't with 100% certainty because some species are closer to others, but now I did notice towards the end of the film when they were trying to because when the guy goes, we'll get there eventually, but the guy goes to try to identify the species of spider because they caught one. The guy that's identified tries to label it as a wandering spider or a banana spider, but it looks nothing like one. Obviously, for real reasons, they can't use real banana spiders because they are quite deadly. Historically, they are actually very dangerous spiders. They're not actually tarantulas, but for the sake of the movie, they had to be safe about everything, so I get it. So what I could figure out is I think they were, at least from what I could tell, they were using Brazilian black tarantulas, Brazilian white knees, and Mexican red legs. So basically, this is your Mexican red leg here. And then, of course, the Brazilian black. Most of the ones I think we saw in the movie were more like males, so they're a little bit thinner, a little bit more lanky. And then, of course, the white knees. There was quite a few of them that I saw in there. Now, they may have had some other species that I didn't really catch, but those were the ones that I saw the most. So anyway, what we got with the plane is trying to land at an airfield that's not really built for a big plane like it is. Of course, Spider gets in the cockpit and bites one of the pilots, which makes them end up having to crash a few miles away. And from there, we... this is a small town, so they're not really equipped for this kind of accident or tragedy. So they're trying to do their best because I think the nearest help is an hour away or something like that. But
yeah, because it's like a small town within California, and
and they rely heavily on their productive
Yeah,
oranges and stuff.
yeah, it's like the main income for the town because obviously the climate in Australia and all of that, and not Australia, sorry, California, because of the climate within California and the area that they're in, obviously it produces a lot of opportunity to grow oranges and fresh fruits, and obviously all of the people that live in that town rely on that factory and that mass, obviously the production plant, because obviously it's their main income.
Hmm.
And we need to also mention that none of this would have happened if the pilots that at the beginning of the movie who are in getting the coffee beans and are going to transport them, they initially are shot down to transport them by the I guess
Federalis, yeah.
yeah, the Federalis, and obviously the basically are able to bribe them to take on stowaway passengers, basically immigrants, and take them back to America.
Hmm.
And if they had not had that happen, then none of the film would have happened. So basically, these greedy people, greedy businessmen or smugglers, whatever you want to call them, got the comeuppance right at the beginning of the film because of their greed. These poor immigrants in the back of the plane are obviously swarmed by these venomous tarantulas and are killed or poisoned, and then the pilots obviously are also infected by being bitten in the crash within this plantation, this orange making plantation in California.
Yeah, and then of course, as the town is trying to save their lives, for one, apparently when they crash, they pretty much seal everything in, but they're trying to break in, so they get in through windows, and they have a tow truck pull one of the doors off. Keep in mind the bags of beans have a lot of the spiders in them, so the bags break. Spiders are running out. They've got a leak of the gasoline on the plane, so they have to be very wary of that. Jimmy gets some jackass who works for the fire department who speeds in on his motorcycle, crashes right where they're trying to get the fuel away from the plane, and lights it on
This
fire. So
that is why this is why I'm nodding my head, because he works for the fire department. He's been trained in fire and health and safety. There's a plane that is leaking fuel into an area, and he is on a motorcycle, which is heavily fueled with gasoline itself, and he crashes into it, and it sets the whole line of fuel on fire. Now,
there's your dark comedy right there.
there is the dark comedy element I was thinking, but it is also the most jackass thing I've ever seen in a
Yeah, that
film.
was a train wreck of a moment in the movie. But obviously they're trying to keep the movie going along, so they had to figure something out to get the fucking thing to like. You had the one guy with the cigarette. Dude's like, "Yo, dude, really? Gotta stop here." Um, so yeah, so eventually what happens is because some of the people that get off the plane are half alive, or whatever, they think there might be a plague because they're sick or they're dead or whatever. So the doctor really isn't. He's been retired, the one they got. So he's like, his early guess is like it could be contagious, and then of course some other dude is trying to salvage the beans. He gets bit, and all of a sudden they think, "Oh no, plague spreading." Don't, no one touch them. Right now they don't really know what's going on. Uh, so yeah, this town is ill-equipped to really handle to any massive type of ordeal. So they're trying their
Mm-hmm.
best. They're taking everybody back to town
Mm-hmm.
that they can. To
Or
kind
also during that scene where the person gets bitten, who is like picking or whatever, and collapses near the truck, you still see that scene of the spider like
of,
quickly hovering away underneath the truck, and at the same time you have the young child, the character, who is playing with the spider in the background. He's got this long ass like stick, and
Yep.
he's playing away with the spider till he kind of brushes it into like a giant barrel or sewage thing, and that plays on later in the film where we're heading to where the doctor takes the people to his infirmary, his doctor's office.
Yep.
And obviously there's events that transpire before that, but I thought it was important to mention that the child had seen one of the spiders.
Yeah, and I kind of like the pacing of the movie for TV movies. Back then, a lot of these TV movies are really good. The Car, Dark Knight, the Scarecrow, stuff like that. They're always pretty good, and this was one of those ones. I like the pacing because they allow the whole idea behind the plague to kind of play out a little bit for about a few minutes before they jump into like, oh, no, wait a minute, we have something else going on here, and so. We got these sideshow things. There's a woman who's a teacher who's having an affair with an old flame, and they're at like a little picnic out in the woods a little bit. And as he goes to get the radio to listen to, she's thinking that she's laying down, thinking that he's kind of tickling her feet, but it's one of the spiders that bites her, and then she eventually just collapses near a tree. So he picks her up, thinking she fell, runs her to the little hospital there. Then we kind of get that little scene where the other teacher's with the girl with the tennis racket with the spider that she found near the area. But this is where the doctor kind of notices, like, hey, did she get bit by a snake? Because there's like this little bite mark on her foot. And he's like, I don't think so. Like, he didn't see any snakes or anything. But then we get like the other teacher who got the other spider from the rack into a jar, and he comes to the doctor really just to check up on the other teacher, the girl that died. And the doctor's like, what is that? He's like, well, this was found out by the school. And he's like, oh, okay. So he starts putting two to two together. He borrows this spider, goes to see. It looks like it might be the reason why it might have bit her. So then we start realizing that there might be something else going on, and
he starts radioing around, doesn't he, to the to where to the ambulance. There's an ambulance with people in it from the crash site, and he like radios through, and this is what basically confirms that it's spiders, and that obviously this is the cause of this kind of epidemic or pandemic that's starting to unfold in the town. Yeah, radios through to one of the ambulances, and he basically asks if there any markings with greyness around, and both of the people from the plane, they get confirmed that they basically have the similar markings to the lady that passes away in the doctor's surgery. And he basically he's obviously added the dots that this is basically a venomous spider that's obviously crash landed and is now in California. And I think it's during this time that once they find this information out, one of the members, I think it's the character from the airfield who knows somebody.
Yeah, he's like the radio guy or something that was taking care of the little airfield there.
Yeah, he's like he works for the airfield, and he knows somebody from a university or college that specialises in kind of this field, and they contact him, and he basically confirms that the spider that is basically broke free from the plane crash is the most venomous spider, or a very venomous, dangerous species of spider, and they've got a problem on their hands.
Yeah. So while he's doing that, of course, the funny thing is the plot almost plays out like Jaws, because we have the one guy that runs the warehouse where the oranges are and the immigrants are working. Like, he's like, we gotta keep these oranges going, man. We gotta sell them. This town relies on this shit. Like, even though he's getting warnings about, hey, shit's happening, we need to like slow down and keep people. Is like, no, we gotta keep going. We gotta sell these oranges. So we got that sideshow going.
Yeah, and I actually really enjoyed them scenes in this film. Actually, he's like a stereotypical like human antagonist where he looks villainous. He's got the weird freaking hairstyle back in the time. He's got his cane. and he's like, he's like an evil Colonel Sanders kind of thing, and he's like, he's basically is in charge and is running the orange facility, the plantation and all that. And when the doctor approaches him and he says, we've figured out what's going on, it's a venomous spider, then more likely they're going to be heading this way towards, because they feed off fruit and they eat the flies or whatever surrounding the fruit. So we need to, maybe to potentially shut the plant down and health and safety, protect the people. But no, not him, with his evil cane, and he's standing and he basically threatens the doctor and says, I can get you basically arrested for slander or making
Yeah,
up.
I think it was the fire chief he was batting heads with, because the fire chief was the one trying to take over the scene, and there's like this power struggle for like, I didn't know you were in charge. Yeah. So it was like one of those things. It's just like you got the sheriff batting heads with the fire chief, and the fire chief with that
Yeah.
particular
But
owner.
but the doctor though, who's played by Pat Hinley, he's the one who actually goes, and he's basically he's looking down the villain,
Yeah.
and with his cane, he's looking down and all these little workers saying, "However, we've got to get this order out by 8 a.m. tomorrow." And they're all looking up at them, and obviously it sounds horrible to say, but this is back in the 70s. But there could have been immigrants, they could have not had all the visas in check. That's what it felt like.
Oh
It
yeah.
felt like modern day slave labor to me. And
They basically treated him like assholes.
and he comes across as an asshole, and he's treating them like an asshole. And the doctor goes of it, and he's telling them, and then he's walking down where he's looking down at the conveyor belt, and you see all the oranges going back, and them picking all the oranges, and he's saying, this is what I think it is. I think we need to think about shutting this factory down while we sort out this issue, because it could be deadly. And he threatens the doctor, and he says something along the lines of, I think I'll get you arrested for slander or this and that. And then as he turns around, the doctor's just staring at him, puts his head, he turns around and walks away with his cane. And this is one of my favourite shots in the film that has nothing to do with the spiders. As he's walking away and he's standing above all the workers on the production line, you just see in the background the fan going up and up like that, and you see all that, and like the oranges going up, and you just see like glances of him walking away, and the doctor staring there with his head down. And I thought, for a TV film, and for like this kind of film on that time, I thought that kind of scene and how they put that together was a really very iconic look and scene for that.
Very powerful moment, yeah.
Very powerful moment, yeah.
I agree. Yeah, so now obviously we have a lot more of the things that happen within the town, as people are scrambling, because information doesn't pass quite that fast like it does now. So we got the guy from the airfield, he's still at the university figuring out what this spider is. The doctor's trying to warn the manufacturer, the plant owner, and then the fire chief, they're kind of like sitting there with the doctor, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And of course, the little boy from the beginning, who happens to be the son, I think, of the young woman who's romantically involved with our guy from the airfield, he starts hearing about this spider that's up on top of this truck with the oranges. And so he figures he doesn't really take it. He's young, so he doesn't really take it as serious, like, oh yeah, this spider's dangerous. He thinks he's going to prove that the spider is like harmless. So he's going to climb up there, try to grab it. And then of course he gets bit, and there's this big hucky around near the truck. So this when the fire chief comes, and they realize, hey, yeah, he was bitten by a spider. And like, oh shit, unfortunately kudos to the TV show. They didn't have no problem killing this kid off. They said he's dumb enough to do it. We're gonna use the character as a selling point for the movie. So yeah, the kid ends up dying because again, no one really knows like what species of spider it is. They have no anti-venom, nothing like that. So Even though they know the spiders are the problem, the root of it, it's just like the word's not spreading fast enough. The kid never knew not to mess with it from the beginning. So,
Like the way I looked at the kid though, he's like a stereotypical kid who, he doesn't pay attention, he doesn't listen to rules, or he lives in his own world in his head, and
yeah,
he wants to do good, but really he's just in the way. And obviously, kids like that, obviously, something always bad happens to them, and unfortunately, he loses his life in this film.
yeah, yeah. So, uh, eventually, as they get back, the airfield controller and his girlfriend, the fire chief has to break it to the news that the kid is dead, and of course, the mother's like devastated. I think it is his mother. I'm pretty sure, or at least older sister or something. But
Yeah.
she's devastated. Like she's just traumatized by it. And this, of course, sets the aircraft controller guy, he's pissed off now. So now he's going to go get some, I think it's like fuel or something in a spray can or insecticide or something. And he wants to go into the warehouse where the oranges are because he knows they've been following like a path from the airfield or where the plane crashed to where the deaths have been happening, the bites. So the spiders are migrating.
Yeah, I'm going to say they basically can track the course of the movement of the spiders and
Yeah.
how they are like heading. Like I say, that the trajectory of the spiders is basically aiming towards the food stores.
Mhm.
So they're obviously traveling towards obviously wherever food is, and obviously it's kind of, I think it was noted that flies and all that eat the fruit or lay on the fruit.
Yeah, so
And
the idea is that the fruit draws a lot of insects, which will then draw the spiders. But the
yeah,
thing is, like, it's kind of inaccurate in some ways. Yeah, they'll probably be going to places like that, but they were going through cornfields that have tons of insects. So just like, I don't think they got all of them. It
yeah,
wasn't like the spiders just bypass all the cornfields to get there. But for the sake of the movie and the plot, that's what we're going with.
yeah. Well, you've got to, like a creature feature, you've got to have some believability and some of not believability. Let's
Yeah,
face
yeah,
it,
suspend it.
we're friends, we are fans and friends of giant imaginary fucking city destroying kaiju, so
Right.
so we can let that bit slide a little bit.
Right. We take what we can get. We just want good entertainment. That's all we want.
Spot on, yes.
So yeah, so we've determined that the spiders are migrating to the warehouse where the fruit is, and of course the bugs will gather. So there's this battle between the fire chief and the air traffic controller about him trying to rush in there and throw insecticide. And of course, our guy with the cane really doesn't want that because that will ruin their sale for the oranges. So everyone's coming to a head here about how to deal with this now. So, and somehow it's kind of weird because the aircraft controller guy, he's the one that's like the most level-headed of everybody. So he's like, "Yeah, I grabbed that book from under my seat. It has something about spiders, and they're like, how to defend against them or something." I'm like, how does this guy have all this? So he determines that what can help paralyze these spiders or keep them in a suspended state, that they can go in there and get them and throw them in these cans of like whatever the fuck it is, fuel or insecticide. The sound of wasp, the tarantula wasp, which is a creature that does exist. It does exist out here in Arizona. They are known to attack tarantulas and kill them for food. So it
I
looks
did
like what
not.
they,
I did not know that there
yeah,
is
it's
a
a true species.
giant.
Now whether or not the sound of it would paralyze a spider, I don't know. I'd have to double check that, but there are tarantula wasps, spider wasps that hunt spiders. But so what their theory is like we're going to amplify the sound of these buzzing wasps, which will then paralyze the spiders, so they can go in and scoop them up and put them in these containers of insecticide or gasoline or whatever it is they're going to kill them with, and that's how they're going to try to defeat these things. But obviously, as they start doing this, the power starts going out because spiders are all over the place. They're getting into electricity and stuff like that. So
They've
blowing
obviously
fuses.
they've obviously duplicated and mated, and I don't know how long it takes a spider to mate and duplicate, or the birthing period of a spider.
Not in the short time that they have. That's for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
usually spiders, once they've mated, it will take about a month for them to produce an egg sac, and even by then, they're just spiderling. So
well, this part in this film, the spiders must duplicate like rabbits every 2 hours because because if you remember at the beginning of the film, all you see, even in the coffee beans when they're loading the plane, there's only maybe 6 or 7 spiders getting the amount of coffee
right,
beans, and even the ones that survived the plane crash, there might have only been 2 or 3, and now they're there's imaginary, there's hundreds of them. So, and if you had 100 spiders within, them coffee bean bags that were loaded on the plane, it would have been quite noticeable. So, so that takes the kind of believability away from it. But like you say, this is meant to be entertainment.
right. Yeah. So obviously, back then, like even when they did like Kingdom of the Spiders, they had so many spiders to use. So like, and even then, like, did you see Kingdom of Spiders? I don't remember. I think you said you did.
That's the one with William Shatner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So towards the end of the film, they've got cars driving through all these spiders, crawling all over the place and killing them. So, look, I don't endorse it, but spiders are a bit more lenient in terms of like whether or not people can accept them dying on screen, as opposed to like monkeys or turtles or shit. But especially back then, nowadays we are a little bit more careful with stuff like that. But
I think back then, looking at a cuddly monkey to an 8-legged arachnid, it's different. Like back then, like you say, there was more emphasis on like the cuddly, cute animals. But we need to remember, spiders, any animal that's on the planet, whether it looks cuddly or dangerous, it's still an animal. It's still life and blood, and need to be treated with the same amount of respect.
Yeah, we're a long way from that, but I get they're trying to keep it realistic and all that stuff, so I get it.
Yeah.
So they managed to like fight through a lot of this, and really the movie kind of ends abrupt a little bit for them going back and finishing the job later and stuff like that. But overall, man, for me being 7 years old, this was a pretty jarring movie and helped develop my arachnophobia, which I'm gracefully getting over now. But I'm going to show you a picture of what the actual, because I've told this before in your Sting reaction video we did for the trailer. There's never been a recorded bite that killed a human being through a tarantula, like ever. Now that's just recorded. Now we did talk about, let's say you're allergic to bug stings or something like that, could have a weird reaction to a spider bite. But as far as tarantulas, there's never been one recorded. Now, this is what the banana spider looks like, which is vastly different. It's considered a true spider. So that is the banana spider. And every once in a while in America, we get one that somehow hitches a ride with the bananas. And it freaks people out because one person found one in their banana bag and it was still alive. So, luckily, they killed it. Not really knowing what kind of spider it was, they just killed it anyway. Thank God.
So here's a question: because that's like a true, obvious banana spider. It's very venomous. If the bite of one of them, can that kill a person?
I believe so, but I believe over the years we do have anti-venom for that. But because we don't see them here in the States, at least as far as I know, I mean, they could have traveled at some point over the years, and I don't know. We keep pretty good tabs on these type of species, but whenever they pop up, like I know that a few years ago, there was a container that went over to the UK, had tons of black widows in it. They had to really spray it down, and like that's considered an invasive species over there. So,
well, we don't have any native like venomous species like that kind of species. Like we do have spiders, but they're probably more like, your
Jumping
normal
spiders and stuff like that.
house, like general house spiders. And there's no venomous species of spider, I would imagine, in the UK. That's a deadly species. That could
Yeah,
cause,
and that's why the UK takes that very seriously. So when they discovered it, they basically set that shit on fire. Like, you don't want those kind of invasive species if they're not native to your lands because they will spread. Like it's just that way. So that's why I don't know if you ever remember the whole thing about the African bees. Like that's an invasive species that's made its way into the lower parts of the U.S. And so like we have to keep tabs on them because they destroy a lot of bee colonies. So yeah, so I know we kind of went off a side tangent there, but that's just kind of how it goes when you're talking about these type of things. But yeah, overall, like this film, it's a bit dated, so it doesn't really have that
still
long
got a
lasting
good
effect.
story.
Oh
Still
yeah, it's
got,
still great.
and I actually enjoyed this film. I enjoyed the story, and I would like a modern remake. I do think it would be fascinating to have a modern remake of this movie, because it's kind of a movie that I think if they brought out now with the effects we have, with maybe slightly more in-depth story, more character development, it would be a really entertaining film, like a remake.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I'm going to be doing a segment on my channel soon called "From Nostalgia to Nightmare," and that's where I'm going to be talking about remakes. And one of the issues I'm going to bring up is that there are certain movies from our past that I think deserve good remakes. There's other ones I think that it just should be off limits, but that's just a personal opinion. But I'll be going through and breaking down some of those films that I think could use one. This is a good example of one that really could use a nice reboot or remake because the story is great. You just need to clean it up a little bit. So, what would you rate this?
For the initial story, I like the story, I like the concept, so I would probably rate this maybe 6 out of 10. The story, I was quite inventive. I didn't like the story. The pacing for me is a little bit slower, and I think as much as it's an invasion movie and a creature feature, I think they could have done more in terms of showcasing, the horror more element of the spider. Obviously it's back in the 1970s, so we've had films before that, or even during this time, that showed a little more, horror and, drama surrounding it. It just felt slightly very, like, everyone was more relaxed around it. Like it didn't feel as threatening as it should have been.
Right.
You've got this plane crashes, you've got this invasive species, like you've said. If the government knew about it, they'd be on their arses and be like, whoa, 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 just bomb the facility, destroy the oranges, let's wipe everything out. And when people are dying, yes, it's tragic, but it didn't feel heavy, if you know what I mean. It
Yeah.
didn't have
Yeah.
it didn't have any weight to it when
Correct.
people were dying, and I thought that's what kind of let the film down. But I love the concept, I like the story, I love Pat Hingley, and so for me, 7 out of 10.
It's
Sorry,
about where I
6.
am. Yeah,
6 out of
I'm
10.
at a 7 myself. Yeah, so we're close. It is dated, but still kind of holds up in some areas, but it is clunky in a lot of areas. So like, yeah, the atmosphere is not as dreadful as you want. In fact, it's kind of funny because I think it's the intro uh after the plane's in the air or whatever, or there's like this upbeat music that doesn't really match what we're supposed to be feeling about these
Yeah,
spiders. So
that is what, at the beginning, like you asked me right at the start, what was my initial reaction? And I said I thought it was going to be like a dark comedy, and why I felt that way is because of the entrance music, the sound that was playing. And then it got a bit darker on the plane when you see the lightning and they're in this thunderstorm, and the immigrants are in the back of the plane, and there's the initial, attack from the spider. I thought, oh, right, it's getting darker, it's getting a bit heavier.
yeah,
But once the initial crash happens, it felt like all that heaviness and the weight of what the plot and the story could have been disappeared, and everyone just seemed more relaxed, and it seemed to kind of carry on the same trajectory at the same kind of pace and the same kind of tone. It just didn't feel heavy. It didn't feel dramatic as it could have been.
Right.
And I think, even though I know, yes, it's in the 1970s, but obviously we've had films way past that era, that time, that I could still watch today that have a heaviness to it. Obviously, for example, Godzilla 1954 with the atomic, the metaphor of the atomic blasting, the music, the tone it said, in black and white. This could have had elements of that in there with the heaviness, the tone of the movie, and I just felt very flat.
Yeah, I agree. So I know that you were saying that you're trying to work out your schedule, but tell people what you got coming up on the entertainment headquarters.
So, coming on the entertainment headquarters, for those that don't know, me and Anubis, my partner in crime on my channel, I do the Retro Classic Movie Show. And the last one we did was Conan the Barbarian, which was DJ Anubis's pick. He came up with a brilliant idea to do an audience, choice, subscriber choice, whatever. You don't have to be a subscriber, but please like, share, and subscribe if you want to. But I put
Do it.
I put a poll up for 4 choices for the next topic of film for us to talk about. So far, the winner is Predator, but there are 4 choices up there. So if anyone wants to go over to my channel and still put the vote in, you can do, and I'll have a look at it. And the winner, we'll be doing the winner's choice, which is so far Predator. So we've got the movie, the movie classic retro show coming up. I do have some reviews planned, which you will be a part of. I plan on doing a Into the Darkness segment on the Evil Dead with you, Mr. Tony of the Dead himself, and Anthony Jordan. I have a few more reviews. We have the Blue-Eyed Samurai coming up review with me and 2 other friends, Mr. Jedi Granville and Sci-Fi Century from the Sci-Fi Society channel. And finally, one thing I'll be working on this week is a brand new My Top 10, and it will be my top 10 animated series from my childhood.
I saw at least the emblem Thundercats is listed in there.
Or is that just a,
Or is that like a little like hey, maybe not
maybe
distraction?
Maybe not.
As for me, as I said, from nostalgia to nightmare, I'm going to try to get that out there. I'm planning on doing another When I Rate Alone. I'm going to talk about a couple of videos. I'm going to react to what's being talked about between more Sweet Baby Inc. stuff, as well as what was the other thing I had on the docket? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Stellar Blade. So there's a couple of things regarding I'm going to be talking about. Still want to get my on-bach review for Lone Wolf with Dub. I know I've been procrastinating with it a lot.
I love on-bach. And if you do decide to see the Ip Man series, I want to be a part of that.
Sure.
One other thing I forgot that is coming to the channel eventually when I get the schedule and sorted out. Me and DJ Anubis and another fellow content creator, Thrash Pondu Pond, will be reviewing the new Shogun series from Disney+.
Great stuff, too. I'm going to love talking about that. All right. Well, from us to you, hit the like button, subscribe. If you enjoyed the channel, please visit this man's fucking channel. He's fucking great. A lot of great content there. Hit the like and subscribe to his channel. Support, because we are trying up and coming YouTubers, and we try to bring you the best entertainment and discussions. If you have any recommendations for the Cinemax Synergy, let us know. We're always taking, no matter any kind of recommendations you want to give us, we will look at it and go from there. We will see you next time here on the Melatown Radio Podcast. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Before you die. Find the blood.